Please welcome to the stage a man who has drummed with legend after legend after legend, from John Lennon to David Bowie to Pink Floyd to Sly and the Family Stone. You know this man's got the funk if he's jamming with Sly. I'm talking about Andy Newmark.
Glad you mentioned Sly and the Family Stone, because I wouldn't be here or have had the career that I've had were it not for that band. So, thank you. 40 years ago this year, 1975, I got a phone call. Someone introduced himself on the phone to me as Nils Lofgren, and I thought, oh, I've heard of him. I'd heard about that album, Cry Tough. And he said, hi, Andy, I'm Nils. You don't know me, but I was just digging you and Willie Weeks playing on Ronnie Wood's solo album. And he said, man, that's some nasty shit. He says, I want to get some of that. Can we hook up? I said, sure, man. So he flew up from Maryland to New York City, where I lived. We went into a studio and we played and got on great, and it was all grooving and happening, and we made a record right then and there. It just all happened, and the vibe was happening so quickly, and there was no producer on hand. So Nils just said to A&M Records, look, I don't have a producer, but I'm in the studio with Andy, and this shit is happening. Can we just go on and produce it and just finish it? They said, yeah, go ahead, do it. So we produced a record. I'm not a record producer, I'm just a drummer. But anyhow, we caught a vibe, the spirit entered the room, and we got some smoking tracks, and I'm proud of it. Okay, so I have been really tight with Nils Lofgren for 40 years now. He is one of the most caring, compassionate, gentle, kind, considerate, articulate human beings I've ever met. He is a beautiful cat, and we are much more than just musical acquaintances. We have a close, meaningful friendship that's gone on for 40 years. We are in constant communication, whether by email, telephone, or whatever. Sometimes I'm on the road with him, not often lately. Sometimes we make records. That doesn't happen too often either lately. But we are in constant communication and caring about each other. And he is one of the people in a very small circle of close friends in my life. So, as a musician, he is a monster. That's a term we used to use in New York about cats who can play and own their instrument and take ownership of every note they play, who have taste, restraint, chops, and even more importantly, he can play in time. Okay? Nils is still putting out. I saw him in concert last week. He was playing his ass off. He's getting better and better and better. He is a motherfucker. He is the shit. He's the real fucking deal. Okay? Nils, I love you, and it's my honor to present the Outstanding Contribution Award to you, my friend.
Wow, Andy Newmark, everybody. Now, if I had to give this award tonight, you know, the first guy I think of over here, especially in England, is my beautiful brother in arms, Andy Newmark. Couldn't find a finer friend or musician. He's more than a drummer. He sent me many songs he's written and recorded himself. And anyway, honored to have you here, Andy. Thank you. Gotta thank Classic Rock. Really an honor. I'm very grateful. And before I get too long-winded, which I'm bound to do, because England has a very, very special, heavy meaning for me. I'll explain in a minute. Shout out to my lovely wife, Amy. Gorgeous Amy, the best person I know. And taken care of me for 20 years. And one of our first dates, I started asking Amy about music. And out of the blue, she recited the entire lyric to the classic In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel to me. So I knew I had a spirit that could understand the madness of what I do on occasion. Thanks, Amy. And it's great here tonight, too, to have our niece, Sydney Corvelli, our tour manager, David Walker-Collins. I got to say, I played a gig last night, and I got a gig tomorrow night. And after 47 years on the road, that I can come to England and anyone wants to hear me sing anything, I'm very grateful. So that's been a beautiful thing. Of course, I started when I was 5 years old. I asked Mom and Dad for accordion lessons on the south side of Chicago. They didn't know it was going to be 10 years of it. But they've been so supportive my whole life. My brothers, Tommy, Mike, and Mark. Tommy's done hundreds of shows in the UK with me. But at an early age, I discovered from classical accordion, it was really the Beatles and the Stones, what we called in America the British invasion. And you know, most of you grew up here, so you've heard this story. But I can't tell you the power and just the compassion and energy and security and rescue I felt. And through the Beatles and Stones, I discovered Staxville, Motown, you know, everything, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Richard, Ray Charles. I discovered through the English musicians. And before I knew it, I was 17. I was on the road with my band Grin, my great bandmates, Bob Gordon, Bob Berbrick, and my brother Tommy. Anyway, when I was 16, I went to see The Who in 1967. And after they were done, my mind was blown. We rushed across town to the Ambassador Theater. Pete Townsend came over too, and we saw the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And that night, I was just so blown away by rock and roll and what those two bands did. I was possessed with the notion I needed to be a rock musician, so I carried on. And before I knew it, the great super guitar players, Albert King, B.B. King, Jeff Beck, Jimi Hendrix, Roy Buchanan, who played the Redneck Bars where I grew up in Maryland and befriended me and tried to show me how to play those bell-like harmonics. And, of course, you got the great, rhythm thematic players, Pete Townsend, Keith Richards, George Harrison, Jimmy Page, all those great, great players that stamped me and gave me a suit to pull from. Anyway, so we're on the road, 19 years old. I was 18, actually. And all of a sudden, I get this call. I was living in Topanga Canyon, and Neil Young and David Briggs say, "Look, Nils, we're making an album after the Gold Rush. I need you to sing a little bit, play some guitar, and play piano." And I said, "Well, I'm not a piano player." And they said, "Yeah, but you played that damn accordion for 10 years, and we think you can figure it out." So they had more faith in me than I did. I decided I'd shut up and say yes, and that led to many beautiful. I always remember going to work when I was 18 on After the Gold Rush thinking, hey, it's nice not to be the boss. It's nice not to be the leader every friggin' day. And there's so many non-musical issues you have to deal with that go away when you're in a great band. Anyway, led to many great bands. Jimi Hendrix, the greatest. I saw Jimmy, he blew my mind. A couple years later, I saw him at Baltimore Civic Center. I snuck backstage, which I did a lot, and asked for advice. He was walking down the hall, and he was all alone. He looked pretty down. By the way, Janie, I love your brother. He's the main reason I'm here tonight doing what I'm doing. God bless you and your family. And, yes. Anyway, so Jimmy's walking there, and I sneak out from behind the door. We're all alone in this hallway. I say, "Hi, Jimmy, how you doing?" And he said, I'm kind of under the weather. My manager's got me playing 64 shows in 66 days. And at that moment, I was just a teenage kid, and I looked at Jimmy, and I'm like, well, man, take care of yourself, have a good show. And he just sauntered down the hall, and I thought, man, I guess maybe you have to look out for agents and managers a little bit. And I'm glad that there's a lot of good ones in the room tonight, but man, that guy was amazing and, you know, meant so much to me. Fast forward, my 19th birthday, we get a call from Frank Barcelona, the fabulous American agent. My band Grin opens 3 shows for the Jimi Hendrix Experience in California. On my 19th birthday, I got to open for Jimmy. Of course, you get the all-area pass, so I go back to the Winnebago and I knock on Jimmy's door, and he answers. And I go, Jimmy, I'm Mr. Hendrix. I'm in a band called Grin. We're your opening act. I want to shake your hand. I got to look him in the eye and thank him from the bottom of my heart for everything. And, you know, off to the races. You know, years later, just being in other bands and getting to do different things. You know, when you're a band leader, you sing everything, you play the solos. And, you know, years later, just finding different instruments to play and not having, you know, singing harmonies, playing pedal steel, lap steel, bottleneck, rhythm. It just was something I embraced. In '85 on the Born USA tour, I joined the band and we were playing in England. I met Ringo Starr, became friends. In '89 he called and said, hey, I'm putting a band together, my favorite people, want you to be in it. And this was the reason I picked up the guitar, was the Beatles and the Stones and people like Hendrix and the British Invasion. So I said, great, when do we start? I was at Cloud 9 and I laughed. I was going to say goodbye and he laughed at me and said, well, don't you want to know who's in the band? And I was like, well, Ringo, you're in the band, right? I said, yep. I said, well, that's good enough for me. So let me tell you anyway. We've got Dr. John, Billy Preston, you and Joe Walsh, Rick Danko, Levon Helm, Jim Kellner, and Clarence Clemens, your buddy on sax. So, yeah, I mean, I've been so blessed to have such a great long journey, playing with so many bands, all the roadies, all the, you know, production people. Shout out to my son Dylan, who's back in Tempe, Arizona, and Maria looking after our dogs. But, you know, music has been like the sacred weapon for billions of people, and I know everyone in this room. It continues to save me. Just like 50 years ago, you listen to Wilson Pickett, 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, or, you know, Jumpin' Jack Flash by the Stones. It does the same thing. You know, it works the same magic. And I couldn't be more grateful to be here. And, you know, it's burning bright. It'll keep doing it. God bless everyone here tonight. And thank you so much for this spectacular award. Bless y'all. Keep on rocking.
Nils Lofgren. Man, a few words.